I read on average a book a week in 2024, and I went from a casual reader and full-time scroller to a total bookworm. I've got 7 habits that help me do that. I followed these to achieve the goal of 52 books in 52 weeks. I wanted to become a better reader. I wanted to learn more and avoid a future after school and university where I just stopped learning. So here's 7 habits. Firstly, use an e-reader. Kindles can be surprisingly cheap, especially secondhand. I still use a Kindle Fire from nearly 10 years ago. It still works and is without a doubt the best piece of tech I have ever had. There is something so useful about Kindle that it beats any kind of disappointment from missing out on that page turning feeling. And don't forget, you walk around with an e-reader in your pocket. I use both the Kindle app and an e-reader app called Cortex, so I can read books on my phone as well as my Kindle. Which brings me to my second tip. Most definitely do not ever download books for free to save loads of money. I know books are expensive. It's cheaper if they're digital copies, but all the same, they can cost a lot of money. So what you must not be tempted to do is download books illegally.
Just like this. Step 1. Search on Reddit for the best free ebook sites. Step 2. Type in the search bar for your book. Step 3. Download the ebook in EPUB format. Step 4. Send it to your Kindle email address or follow the same steps to download it to your phone and read from an e-reader app.
Speaking of books I didn't illegally download because they're very expensive, I'm going to tell you my favourite 7 books I read this year, all the way up to my favourite one of the 52 that I finished. Number 7 is Hiroshima Diary, authored by Michihiko Hachiya. Butchered. An amazing first-hand account of life during and directly after the atomic bomb dropped in Hiroshima. Number 6 is The Great Rat Race Escape by N.J. DeMarco. A mix of fiction and non-fiction is a brilliant way to teach you how to start and run a business from scratch, and already plan to reread this going into 2025. Okay, here's another tip. Don't read books you don't want to read. I've spent way too much time trying to read things I don't actually care about, or I'm not even enjoying the process of reading them. And then I end up just not reading anything as a result of this. The point of reading is to find enjoyment or satisfaction out of what you're doing. It's never a punishment. Number 4, use local libraries. They have free books. Just sign up and start borrowing. This is especially helpful if you don't have an e-reader, trying to save money, and you prefer physical copies. Go to your local library, sign up, and pick a book. Okay, books number 5 and 4 from my favourites I've read this year is A Clash of Kings and A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. I loved the TV show, rubbish ending. I've read these books before, but I had to read them again because they are just so addictive. You just become so curious and engrossed that you physically cannot put this book down. They are incredible.
Okay, tip number 5. Replace scrolling with reading.
If you've read Atomic Habits or The Power of Habit, you're probably very aware of how habits work. Well, what I discovered was that I could swap moments I used to scroll with reading. Eating food, sitting on the toilet, sitting in bed. I just made a direct swap between the two, and it helps when you have an e-reader because it's really simple to always have a book on you at all times. Find the times where you're habitually scrolling and make a conscious effort to swap to reading. Okay, tip number 6, keep a book list. Some people think counting the number of books you read is a vanity project. I disagree. I personally think it's a really useful way to motivate yourself to read more. And you need motivation to read. Why would I read when I can watch TV, play video games, scroll through YouTube Shorts? The reason is because reading is probably better for you and I'm probably going to learn more, but it takes effort to do it. So I have a book list of the number of books I've read this year alongside my target number. Then I break down the year into quarters like this, and I record each book I've read by writing them down and crossing them out. And at the bottom, I keep my to-read list. I break that down into different topics, and I get these recommendations from other books I read, people from real life or just online that I've come across. All right, closing down to my favorite books of the year. Number 3 is Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Schreier. It's a really entertaining and insightful historical explanation of how Hitler and the Nazi Party came to be. There's quite a few volumes to this. I've only read the first couple, but I found it really enjoyable, and I'm going to go back and read the others. All right, number 2 is Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lembke. It's a super interesting insight into how dopamine functions in addictions and bad habits. She even goes into detail in dealing with powerful negative habits in her own life. I definitely recommend. Okay, so the final habit that helped me read 52 books in 52 weeks. You need a why. Why are you reading? What for? Give me a good reason why you want to read. Keep it simple but meaningful to you. So whenever you feel like being lazy and scrolling through TikTok for a few hours, you have that little voice in your head that tells you to stop and pick up the book. Okay, bonus habits, quick fire round. Read before bed. It's super relaxing, especially if it's fiction, and you can sleep better. If you have someone sleeping with you in that bed, get them to read too. It's way less distracting when they read with you rather than scrolling through TikTok and finding out what Becky Jones ate for dinner that day. Schedule your reading. I love schedules. They run my life. So schedule in some time today, literally 5 minutes, to sit down, pick up a book, and read. Finally, audiobooks count. Okay, finally, the number one book I read this year is The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. At times, it was really difficult. There's a lot of complicated ideas, there's a lot of complicated language, but ultimately, I thought it was brilliant. Books like that, when they're difficult to read, you have to take your time. Sometimes you have to go back, but it was just incredible. Ultimately, this year has changed my life. It's given me reading habits I'll take with me forever. I've become a more consistent and engaged reader, and I've learned some incredible things. And I can't wait for what I'll pick and read next.